Hi, I'm Landry Beckett, 27 years old. That Saturday morning, my little brother Dylan looked me dead in the eye and said, "Cancel your doctor appointment and drive me to the airport right now." I said no. Next thing I knew, his hand cracked across my face so hard I staggered. "Selfish bitch," he screamed. My parents didn't even blink. Mom just added coldly, "His future actually matters. Yours doesn't. That doctor appointment. The one I waited 9 whole months for, the one that would tell me if the lump in my neck was cancer or not. His flight to Perfect Game National, the showcase that could lock him a multi-million MLB deal. I walked out that same day and they lost everything. If you've ever had your own family choose someone else's dream over your literal life, stay until the very end. This one ends ice cold. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a single true story like this. I've always been the shadow on the edge of our own backyard. From the time my little brother Dylan was 8 years old, that yard was his kingdom. Dad tore up the grass and poured a concrete slab just so he could have a 60-foot batting tunnel with professional-grade netting and stadium lighting that lit up the entire block. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, some new private coach in a major league warm-up jacket would roll up in a lifted Silverado, $300 an hour cash, only no receipt. Weekends weren't weekends anymore. They were red-eye flights to Jupiter, Fort Myers, Phoenix, Cary, Lake Point, wherever the best travel ball tournaments were that month. Dylan flew first class when he was 12. I was still riding the RTD bus to community college. I paid for my own books, my own food, my own everything. While Dylan got custom cleats molded to his feet every 6 weeks, I was working overnight janitorial shifts at an office park off Bellevue, then clocking in at 6 a.m. at Einstein Bros on Pearl Street so I could stack enough credits to transfer to CU Boulder. My bedroom was the unfinished basement cinderblock walls, one bare bulb of futon I found on Craigslist, and a constant soundtrack of baseballs slamming into the backstop above my head until midnight. Some nights I counted the thuds instead of sheep. 137, 138. Until the lights finally went out. Mom kept a huge dry erase board on the fridge with Dylan's entire year mapped out in red. WWBA World Championship in July, Perfect Game National in June, area codes in August. My work schedule never earned a single square. When I got into Boulder on a partial scholarship, Dad looked up from his phone long enough to say, "Cool means you're out of here sooner." They didn't come to my graduation ceremony. Dylan had a showcase in Georgia that weekend. Mom sent me a text with a baseball emoji and nothing else. At 26, I finally had a real job at an advertising agency in lower downtown, making enough to rent a 400-square-foot studio off Colfax. I was still sending money home every month because the travel ball dues went up again, or the new radar gun cost $2,000, or the team needed new uniforms with Dylan's number stitched on the back in 3D lettering. I told myself it was temporary. Once I got the lump in my neck checked out, once I knew I was fine, I'd stop. I'd finally draw the line. The lump showed up right after my 26th birthday, hard as a marble under my jaw. The family doctor in Littleton felt it, frowned, and sent me straight to an ENT. The ENT sent me to oncology. Every specialist within driving distance had wait lists stretching 6 to 10 months. I took the very first opening anyone offered me 9 months out. I marked it in my phone calendar in red, the only red thing that was ever about me, and I waited. I waited while the lump grew. I waited while my voice started cracking on certain words. I waited while Dylan's fastball climbed from 92 to 96, and the recruiting sites started calling him a generational arm. Nobody in that house ever asked how I was doing. Mom only called when the coach needed another payment. Dad only texted when Dylan needed a ride to the airport because Uber was too slow. I kept wiring the money, kept showing up with Gatorade and sunflower seeds, kept pretending I didn't notice how my necklaces stopped sitting flat anymore. I told myself once the appointment came, everything would change. I would finally matter to somebody, even if it was only the doctor. But that appointment landed on the exact same Saturday Dylan had to be at Denver International by 8 a.m. for the private charter flight to the biggest showcase of his life. And for the first time in 27 years, I realized I was done being the shadow. That Saturday morning, Dylan came pounding down the stairs like the whole house was his personal clubhouse. He had his perfect game travel hoodie on, the one with his number stitched huge across the back duffel bag, swinging AirPods, blasting whatever hype playlist he was obsessed with that week. He didn't even look at me, just barked toward the kitchen. Landry keys. We're leaving in 25. Flight's at 10. I was leaning against the island, clutching the first hot coffee I'd tasted in peace in forever. My phone sat face up next to me, screen glowing with the reminder I'd been living for UHealth Anschutz, Oncology, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. 11:30 a.m. Do not reschedule. I took a slow sip and said, I'm not driving you. I have my appointment. He stopped halfway through the living room, yanked one AirPod out. What appointment? The specialist. The lump in my neck. The one I've been waiting 9 months for. He actually laughed like I'd told the world's weakest joke. You're serious right now, call them and move it. This is perfect game, National Landry. Every single MLB team is sending scouts. I'm not missing my shot because you have some random doctor visit. It's not random. They're doing a biopsy. It might be cancer. He rolled his eyes so hard his whole head went with it. God, you're so dramatic. You've had that thing for ages and you're walking around fine. Cancel it. No. Just that one word, calm, flat, final. The air in the room changed instantly. He dropped his bag, took 3 steps toward me until we were toe-to-toe. His voice dropped to that ugly whisper he saves for people who dare tell him no. Get your keys. Get in the car. Drive me to the fucking airport. I'm not doing it. His hand moved faster than I could track. Open palm full force cracked across the left side of my face like a major league fastball. The impact spun me. My hip caught the sharp corner of the island. Coffee exploded across the counter, and I went down hard on the living room rug, ears ringing, vision flashing white. Mom and Dad were already standing there. They'd walked in while we were arguing and hadn't made a sound. Dad folded his arms, looked down at me on the floor, and delivered the only words he would ever say to me again. His future actually matters. Yours doesn't. Mom didn't even glance my way. She was too busy making sure Dylan's boarding pass was pulled up on her phone. I stayed down for maybe 4 seconds, tasting blood, feeling the perfect outline of his hand burning into my skin. Something inside me that had been cracked for years finally shattered clean in half. I pushed myself up, slowly wiped my mouth, and walked past all 3 of them without a single word. Up the stairs, into the bedroom I barely used anymore. Grabbed the go bag I kept for last-minute work trips, threw in 3 more days of clothes, my laptop charger, toiletries, the thick folder with every medical record I owned, and the envelope with $4,000 in cash I'd been hiding in a shoebox for emergencies. 14 minutes from the second his palm connected with my face to the second I was back downstairs. Dylan was already in the garage screaming about traffic. Mom was holding his shaker bottle like it was made of gold. Dad never turned around. I walked straight to the front door. Dylan yelled from the garage. Landry, what the hell are you doing? I didn't answer. I opened the door, stepped into the freezing May morning, and pulled it closed behind me with a soft final click that somehow sounded louder than the slap itself. I got in my car, backed out of the driveway, and drove away from that house for the last time in my life. I drove straight to UHealth with my brother's handprint still burning hot on my face. I took the parking garage ticket at 10:57 a.m., found a spot on level 4, and sat in the car for 3 full minutes staring at myself in the rearview mirror. The mark was already turning purple, 5 perfect fingers outlined like a brand. I grabbed my folder of medical records, locked the car, and walked inside. The oncology waiting room was quiet, mostly older patients, and one scared-looking teenager with his mom. When the nurse called Landry Beckett, she did the same double take the receptionist had, but kept it professional. I followed her down the hall into the procedure room. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was already waiting, chart in hand, white coat crisp. She looked up, saw my face, and the chart lowered slowly. Landry. Who did that to you? I opened my mouth to lie, to say I walked into a door but nothing came out. Instead, the whole morning poured out at once. Dylan needing the airport, the slap, my parents standing there like I was a stranger, the 15-minute exodus. Sarah listened without moving a muscle. When I finished, she set the chart down, peeled off her gloves, and said, "You are not going back to that house. Not tonight. Not ever, if I have anything to say about it." The fine needle biopsy took 8 minutes. Local anesthetic, quick pressure, a Band-Aid done. She told me results would take 5 to 7 business days and scheduled the follow-up. Then she asked the question that broke the last thread holding me together. "Do you have somewhere safe to go after this?" I didn't. My studio lease had ended in March. I'd been sleeping in the basement on an air mattress whenever I was in town. Sarah didn't hesitate. "You're coming home with me. Guest room, spare key, big dumb golden retriever who thinks everyone is his new best friend." No argument. I tried to protest. She shut it down with one look. "I've seen what happens when people go back after the first hit. We're not doing that." Her house was a modest 1970s ranch in East Aurora, Christmas lights, still blinking on the porch because life's too short. She handed me a bag of frozen corn, poured 2 very generous glasses of Cabernet, and sat me at her kitchen table. Then she asked for my insurance card so she could finish the hospital paperwork on her laptop. I slid my wallet across the table. She opened it, pulled out the card, then stopped cold. "Landry, why are there 9 credit cards in here with your name that I'm pretty sure you didn't open?" I told her I only had 2. She logged into the secure patient billing portal, requested an updated credit report for insurance verification purposes. Turns out oncologists can pull full reports when fraud is suspected, and we watched the screen load together. Total unsecured debt in my name, $178 for $12. 9 different cards, all opened in the last 36 months, all maxed out, all with payment patterns that matched Dylan's baseball calendar like a fingerprint. $29, $800 on a platinum card, team hotels in Jupiter, Fort Myers, and Phoenix. $33 and $100 on a black card, private coaching packages, radar guns, Rapsodo units, Driveline baseball subscriptions. $41, $200 on a business visa, charter flights, private jets to East Cobb team banquet bills. $34, $300 spread across 2 cards, performance supplements from a Sarasota compounding pharmacy that had been raided twice by the DEA for selling trenbolone and testosterone to minor league players. Every application had my social security number, my signature scanned from old-school permission forms, my Littleton address. Some even listed Dylan as an authorized user so he could flash them at team dinners. Sarah stared at the screen for a long time. Then she closed the laptop, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Your family didn't just assault you this morning. They've been robbing you blind for years, and they used your future to buy his." I sat there in a stranger's warm kitchen, holding frozen corn to the side of my face, staring at the number that was now my entire adult life in debt. $178,000. Every cent funneled into the myth of Dylan Beckett, future first-round draft pick. And not one person in that house had ever thought to ask if I was okay. 2 weeks later, the baseball world caught fire. I was standing in Sarah's kitchen in an old CU hoodie, eating yogurt straight from the container, when my phone started going berserk. It didn't ring. It vibrated itself across the granite like it was trying to escape. I picked it up, and the screen was already a war zone. First came the group chat screenshots from parents I hadn't spoken to since high school. Then the Twitter spaces. Then the direct messages from accounts I didn't even follow. Perfect Game National had run surprise tests on every arm, throwing over 92 that weekend. Dylan was yanked off the mound after his 4th inning, escorted to medical by 2 guys in polos with USADA badges. They took blood and urine on the spot. Results came back from the Olympic lab in Colorado Springs in under 48 hours, positive for 3 separate anabolic compounds: bolden-1 undesylonate, nandrolone decanoate, and a TE ratio of 28:1. Numbers so cartoonishly high that the lab flagged it as inconsistent with therapeutic use and sent it straight to MLB's scouting bureau. By 10:12 a.m., his name vanished from the live leaderboards. By 11:03 a.m., Perfect Game's official account posted the driest statement in sports history. Participant Bruflasveno4 has been removed from the event and is ineligible for all future PG activities due to anti-doping violation. By noon, every single recruiting site had scrubbed him. Baseball America, Prep. Baseball Report. 5 Tool prospects live. Gone. His player profile now redirected to a 404-page. 11 Division I coaches who had been texting him heart emojis for 2 years suddenly stopped answering entirely. 11 full-ride offers evaporated like they never existed. The MLB draft board that had him projected as a top 15 pick in 2027 now had a single line in the internal notes that leaked an hour later: permanent global baseball ban. Do not contact. My phone became a weapon. Mom sent 41 messages in 6 minutes. You did this. You're dead to us. Your brother is crying in his room and it's your fault. Dad sent one voice note, 38 seconds of pure venom. You better pray I never see you again. Dylan sent 87 texts before I blocked him. They started with bargaining, moved to threats, ended with him sobbing in all caps that I had murdered his dream, as if I had been the one holding the syringe. By 3 p.m., someone had already started a GoFundMe titled "Help Dylan Beckett Fight False Positive," and it got taken down in 20 minutes for violating terms of service. By 5 p.m., the top post on the biggest recruiting forum was a 47-page thread called "The Dylan Beckett Steroid Scandal." Timeline and receipts, with 1.2 million views. Someone posted side-by-side photos: Dylan at 16, throwing 89, Dylan at 18, throwing 97, veins popping out of his neck like cables. The comments were brutal: surgical final. I sat on Sarah's living room floor, legs crossed, scrolling through the carnage while her golden retriever rested his head on my knee. Every notification was another brick in the wall they had built around him, finally crushing him underneath it. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just watched the empire they sold my future to buy collapse in real time and felt absolutely nothing. At 9:42 p.m., Mom called from a new number. I let it ring. She left a voicemail I played on speaker so Sarah could hear it too. He tried to hurt himself tonight because of what you did. If he dies, his blood is on your hands. Come home right now and fix this. I blocked that number too. Then I turned the phone face down, poured myself a glass of water, and went to bed. For the first time in my entire life, nobody in that house could reach me. And Dylan's perfect golden future was already 6 feet under. I gave them 30 more days of total radio silence. I didn't block them for drama. I erased them. New phone, new number, new email, new everything. Sarah changed her doorbell camera password the same week after Mom tried to show up at 2 a.m. crying on the porch. Security footage only. No conversation. On the 31st morning, I walked into the 17th floor office of Mason Brooks in downtown Denver. Same Mason who once paid me in beer and pizza to write his senior thesis. Now he wore a $3,000 suit and had "of counsel, financial crimes" on his door. I dropped a 2-inch thick binder in front of him and said, "I want them in federal prison." He opened it. Page 1. My social security card photocopy next to 9 forged credit card applications. Page 2, the $41 $200 in private jet fuel charges. Page 50, the compounding pharmacy receipts for 4 cycles of testosterone and nandrolone, addressed to D. Beckett, Littleton, CO. Page 400, bank records showing every single payment coming from Richard's company account or Mom's personal debit card. Mason didn't flinch once. When he closed the binder, he simply said, 10 years minimum for the organizer. That's your father. He filed everything the same day, not state court, federal. IRS Criminal Investigation Division tax evasion on the baseball business expenses FBI financial crimes, Denver field office wire fraud identity theft across state lines U.S. Postal Inspection Service mail fraud. They used USPS to receive the cards U.S. Attorney's District of Colorado full prosecution package. 10 days later, I was having lunch with Sarah when my new phone lit up with a news alert. I opened it and almost dropped my fork. Photo Richard Beckett face pressed against the dusty hood of his own F-250 in the middle of a half-built subdivision in Castle Rock. 2 FBI agents in Navy windbreakers twisting his arms behind his back while his crew stood frozen with rebar in their hands. Headline: Littleton contractor arrested in $178K identity theft against own daughter. Mom was arrested 24 hours later in the King Soopers parking lot on Bowles, still holding 2 tubs of Dylan's favorite vanilla whey when agents put her in cuffs. Dylan got served 3 days after that. Federal marshals found him trying to throw bullpens at a public park in Highlands Ranch because every private facility in the state had banned him for life. They took his phone, his MacBook, his lifted Silverado. Everything. The indictment dropped the following Monday. Richard 12 felony counts. Cheryl 8 counts, including conspiracy. Dylan 4 counts as co-conspirator and beneficiary. No bond for Richard. Judged flight risk with the company jet still in his name. Straight to FDC Englewood in an orange jumpsuit and belly chain. Mom made bond, but surrendered her passport and got the glowing ankle bracelet. Dylan was confined to the Littleton house under pretrial supervision, the same house now crawling with news trucks 24/7. Mason sent me the mugshots. Richard's face was gray, eyes hollow. Mom looked 20 years older. Dylan's booking photo showed a kid who finally realized the world wasn't going to bend for him anymore. The story went national for 3 days. ESPN ran a 30-second segment on SportsCenter titled Top Prospects Family Arrested in Fraud Scandal. Local channels camped on the lawn until the judge issued a no-media perimeter. Former travel ball parents who used to kiss the ground, Dylan walked on, suddenly remembered every suspicious detail they'd ignored for years. I watched it all from Sarah's guest room, drinking coffee on a quiet morning, reading the indictment like it was the best novel I'd ever opened. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just felt the final chain snap. Richard Beckett was no longer my father. He was federal inmate 48729-509, and I was finally completely untouchable. 14 months later, I took the very last seat in the back row of courtroom 402, Alfred A. Araj Federal Building, Denver. I wore a plain black blazer, hair pulled back, no makeup. I wanted to be invisible. I was the only person in the gallery who wasn't press or family. Richard was brought in first. Orange jumpsuit, belly chain, hair gone gray at the temples. He had lost 40 pounds and all of his arrogance. When he scanned the room for familiar faces, his eyes slid right past me like I was a stranger. Good. Cheryl came next, ankle monitor hidden under wide-leg trousers, clutching a rosary so hard her knuckles were white. Dylan shuffled in last, prison-issue slides, wrists cuffed in front of him, looking every bit the broken 18-year-old he now was. None of them saw me. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The prosecutor laid out the final plea deal in a flat, bored voice. Richard Beckett. Guilty plea to 3 counts of aggravated identity theft, 2 counts wire fraud, 1 count tax evasion. Recommended sentence 96 months federal incarceration, no parole, supervised release 3 years. Cheryl Beckett. Guilty to conspiracy and misprision of felony. 60 months probation first, 18 months, home confinement, full restitution, joint and several. Dylan Beckett. Adjudication withheld, diversion program, 2 years probation, permanent ban from organized baseball at any level. The judge asked Richard if he had anything to say. He stood voice shaking and gave the performance of a lifetime. I'm ashamed. Made terrible choices. Trying to give my son a chance. Never meant to hurt my daughter. He even managed a tear. The judge wasn't moved. When she pronounced the sentence, 96 months served at FCI Inglewood, report date 30 days, Richard's knees buckled. 2 marshals caught him before he hit the floor. Cheryl let out one animal sound, half sob, half scream. Dylan just stared straight ahead, eyes empty. Restitution was ordered jointly, $178,412 plus interest payable immediately. The prosecutor then requested and the judge granted forfeiture of the Littleton house to satisfy part of the debt. The 5-bedroom, the batting cage in the back, the trophy room, all of it gone. Auction scheduled. 41 days. I watched the marshals lead Richard away. His shoulders were rounded like an old man. Cheryl reached for Dylan, but he flinched from her touch. For one brief second, Mom's eyes swept the gallery, searching. They landed on me. I didn't move. Didn't nod. Didn't blink. She realized who I was, and her face crumpled completely. I just looked through her like she was glass. The judge banged the gavel. Case closed. People started filing out. I stayed in my seat until the room was empty except for the court reporter packing up. When the final reporter left, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for over 2 years. There was no victory rush, no tears, no desire to run up and scream in their faces. Just a vast icy emptiness where my family used to be. Like standing in the backyard batting cage after the lights finally went out for good. Cold. Silent. Over. I walked out of the courthouse into a bright Colorado afternoon. The mountains looked exactly the same as they always had. But everything else was different now. 1 year after that day, I was finally whole. The biopsy came back benign. Sarah removed the lump in a 40-minute outpatient surgery, left me with a thin scar that runs like a quiet line under my jaw. I kept the pathology report in a frame on my new desk, benign thyroid nodule. No evidence of malignancy. Some days I touch it just to feel the words are real. With the restitution checks and my own savings, I bought a small 1940s bungalow in Boulder, 10 minutes from the trails. Dark green siding, wraparound porch, a backyard big enough for a dog and a garden, and absolutely no batting cage. I closed on a Tuesday in September, got the keys, and slept on the floor that first night because the moving truck was late. It was the best sleep of my life. October came golden and crisp. One Saturday afternoon, I drove south on Highway 93 for no reason other than the light was perfect, and I wanted coffee from the old place on Main. I took the back roads through Littleton without thinking. And there it was, the house on Maple Crest Lane, a bright red sold sign staked in the front yard, a U-Haul backed into the driveway, a young couple carrying boxes, laughing, their little girl chasing bubbles across what used to be Dylan's practice mound. The batting cage was gone. The stadium lights were gone. The trophy shelves were gone. I slowed the car to maybe 10 miles an hour. The woman looked up, smiled, waved like people do in Colorado. I lifted one hand off the wheel in return. In the rearview mirror, I watched the little girl run straight across the spot where I once stood counting fastballs in the dark. I held the image for exactly 1 second. Then I pressed the accelerator and merged back onto the road. My hands did not shake on the steering wheel, not even a tremor. They lost everything, the house, the reputation, the golden child, each other. I gained a life that is finally completely 100% mine. And as the mountains rose up ahead of me and the old neighborhood disappeared behind, I smiled for the first time in years without checking to see who might be watching. I never went back again.